book The Killer Inside Me was written by Jim Thompson, who's probably the most important Pulp Fiction writer, because he did The Getaway with Alan McCraw and Steve McQueen, and he did The Grifters with Annette Bening and John Cusack and Anjelica Huston. Did you know this Pulp Fiction writer before you did the project?
I didn't, but The Getaway is one of my favorite movies.
Is it?
Yeah. And for some reason, I'm particularly drawn to the scene where McQueen slaps the crap out of Ally McCraw.
Oh, really? And what happened in that scene? Where were they? They ran away?
They were on the side of a road.
Right.
I think he had to just smack her around a little bit.
Just a little.
Just a little.
And do you think that that this writer specifically has sort of a penchant for female roles, that he wants to say something that hasn't been said before?
Yeah, I think he writes women like they are, like women, like complex, flawed human beings. You don't see a division between the way the men are written in this movie and the women. They're all pretty multifaceted.
Mm-hmm. And with Casey Affleck cast as the deputy sheriff Lou Ford, in the film, you were actually the first person cast, and you had the choice to play either character, but yet this one seemed so much more important for you to play. And I was wondering, why did you think that this one was a better role than the other one for you?
For me personally, I loved the tragedy of the love story. The fact that she's the one that sort of ignites the passion and the essence of who he is, which is a killer, brings that out in him, I thought was just a really interesting, dark way to approach a love story.
And the fact that she's the prostitute, he's the person who falls in love with her. The pain of finding love is possibly the wrong alchemical mix for him. It hurts him so badly to find it. And is that the same for your character, would you say? That there's a pain from having been, yes, not just a prostitute, but a woman who didn't have somebody in her life, and then to find him. Is it possible that they're both quite similar?
Yeah, I mean, I do think they're definitely kindred spirits, and I do think that they're both a half, and they make a whole together, and they know they can't be in love, so they essentially they have to destroy themselves in order to deal with that. Love is kind of the driving force behind every good story and every good character, I think. And life, I think that's why people do what they do in life, is either to run away from love because it hurts so much, or to constantly chase love, which also kind of hurts so much.
Right, absolutely. And with this character, Lou Ford, he seems to divide his relationships between the girl next door that supposedly is one type, and then she's sort of competing with you for him. How do you feel about that in terms of the casting of Kate Hudson as the girl that you compete with?
I don't think there's any competition between me and Kate. She wins hands down, pretty much always. But it is fun to play a role like Joyce, where you know, she's not necessarily. I think people don't really have expectations for Joyce, and maybe they have expectations for Amy. Everything's appropriate, nothing's appropriate when you're playing a character like Joyce, so I think there's a little more freedom for me in that.
why do you think your character is actually on this ride to hell? What do you think in her background did you carry with you when you took the role? What do you think is the reason why she's become a prostitute, or why she actually...
Her backstory?
Yeah,
you know,
what did you think of?
I think in the 50s, in this time, women didn't have a whole lot, there weren't a lot of choices for women, independent thinking, strong women. And, you know, I think their options were you get married and you live happily ever after, and you're taken care of by a man, or you don't and you're a shrew. And I think she's just a very progressive woman, and this was kind of her only way to get out. I think she loves a sense of adventure. She likes not having to answer to anyone. You know, there's such a freedom when you can pop from one town to the next and pretty much write your own ticket. And, you know, people can say what they want about sexuality and what's right and what's wrong, but there are a lot of women still to this day that use their sexuality in so many ways to be taken care of by a man, and I kind of admire that she didn't choose that route, and she really chose kind of the much more difficult, much more destructive route in the whole situation. And she doesn't have a pimp. It's not like she has to answer to anyone. She's not in a brothel, you know.
And what kind of love affair would you say that she's having with Blue Ford? Do you think that this is the love of her life?
Yeah, I think Blue and Joyce are kindred spirits. I think the passion and the violence and yeah, all of it is, I think they're meant for each other.
And do you think that your character is trying to emulate her pain and her sadness when he actually does spank her? And is he punishing her for being with other men and sort of cleaning the slate?
I don't know. I think it's much more complicated than that. I think that can be part of it, but I think, you know, people like to hurt themselves for all sorts of reasons. And some people kind of feel numb to pain, physical pain, and they kind of get high off of the adrenaline rush of going beyond their physicality. So I think there's something about that as well.
And do you think that you felt safe on this movie set with the director, Michael Winterbottom, that you were safe to explore things that you obviously may not do in your personal life, but you felt interested and satisfied to explore it with Michael? Was he a good...
I have the bruises to prove it.
Are those real?
These are real.
Oh my God.
Those are real?
Yeah.
And,
holy shit.
And my finger.
Oh my God.
And Casey threw out his back.
He did throw out his book back, right?
Wait a minute, now you promised during the audition that you wouldn't hurt Casey. Do you recall that part of...
I know. But he
well,
hurt me
about
too.
audition. Michael didn't actually ever think of anybody but you, which is true.
Did he actually lift you and then pull out his back?
Probably.
Something like
I
that.
wish I weighed
You just don't
100 pounds
remember.
less.
You were in the moment.
We were in the moment, in a rageful moment.
Jesus, maybe this is going to be a good movie. I didn't know about this part.
You mentioned that you like certain types of guys with you mentioned so-and-so is beautiful, or this person had beautiful eyes or a beautiful mouth. What do you think of Casey Affleck? I mean, what kind of, what do you think of his looks and his type of acting? He's playing it sort of withdrawn.
Yeah. You know, I think I love his I love to watch him on screen. He draws you in. So that withdrawn thing, you're waiting to hear what he's going to say next, and you want to know what he's thinking. I think that's so much more interesting than a cardboard, cookie cutter kind of dude that, you know, says the first thing that comes to his mind always. Yeah, I think there's like a mystery and an intensity that he brings to every role that he plays. Yeah.
Was he part of the reason why you chose to do the movie?
Yeah, for sure.
So you wanted to act with Casey?
Yeah, I wanted to work with him.
And then in the end you hurt him.
I didn't mean to hurt him. I feel really bad about that.
And
oh, God.
So what is it like really to work with Michael? Does he actually give you sort of, other than a very good artistic safety net, you feel secure with him? Does he do the rehearsals and the sort of the coaching off the set?
He pretty much works on the set, and you know, we all sort of find the scene together, and he pushes you, I think, in where I may have you know, made a safer choice. He pushes you to kind of go there completely. And it's funny, he's so blasé about everything that it's never threatening or intimidating. He's so just like matter of fact, or that's just the way it is. But he's actually saying things that are quite poignant and difficult to translate.
Yeah, man of few words.
Yeah.
And do you level of the movie, the suspense, the small village, microscope, or it's sort of a sort of situation where you as the prostitute's allowed to be with the rich man's son, he as the deputy sheriff is allowed to wander around the town even though they've got their eye on him. It's sort of a tale of like sort of in some, everybody is being held in place by the values of the town. And then when it gets out of control, ignited by the two of your passion, and then you start your road to hell, the town basically has to make a decision. Did you sense that when you lived in a small town where you came from, town sort of controlled each other and knew what each other were doing? Because you're from Texas partially, Mississippi partially, and obviously the rest of the world soon after.
I think anybody who lives in a small town or a small community, or lives by any community, whether it's a church community in a big city, or if you have a close-knit family, I think people are all sort of living by the code of the clan, so to say, or group that you're surrounded in. And, you know, whether it's a small, literally a small town, or whether it's a small church community or a family, you definitely have to, you know, keep up the integrity of the community, and you can't just think selfishly, probably. Luckily, though, as actors, we don't have to live by any of those rules. We're sort of like the rebels in the bunch, always. Just kind of fun.
Outlaws. Outlaws, definitely. And do you think that
or creative people generally? I think creative people all around are usually considered
outlaws and forward-thinking?
Outlaws, forward-thinking.
Independent thinkers, independent minds.
And they break molds and inspire people to change for the better, because I